exercise number 1 we're showing you today is the single arm cable row, and it's without a doubt our favorite alternative to the actual seated row. It's an exercise that we often toss in on top of the seated row or just simply substitute in for. And some of you may be wondering, why is Scott using momentum within this exercise? And we're going to link down below his cheat and recover method where he talks about the new style of training that he's going to be utilizing. That being said, a couple things you want to keep in mind is you want to make sure to keep your torso upright, your back straight, and you want to make sure not to let the weight pull you to one side while doing this exercise. Variation number 2, we have the wide neutral grip seated row. Now what you want to keep in mind is that you're going to be pulling the bar slightly below the pec line. So I'm a huge fan of this neutral grip bar that we're using, mainly because I can keep my forearms in a nice parallel form, whereas a lot of other neutral grips that you're going to be using are out super wide and you're not going to be able to get as good of a contraction using that. Last but not least, we are doing the wide grip seated row for variation number 3. You're going to want to use the lat pull down bar for this exercise, and by doing it with this nice pronated wide grip, you're going to be targeting the lats a bit more throughout the movement. You want to make sure that you are squeezing your shoulder blades together and you're getting a nice full range of motion like we've talked about a bunch of times in this video. 5 lat pull down variations. Number 1, we're kicking it off with none other than the neutral grip lat pull down. Now, speaking for myself, I can honestly say in the past I have been bored of performing just the same lat pull down variation day in and day out, which is why Josh and myself always make sure that we're doing different variations within each workout. And I think that's awesome, not only for the sake of just switching things up, but also to target the lats in different ways. And now if I were to choose just one lat pull down variation, I'd have to go with this, mainly because you can lift the most amount of weight for this exercise because you are pulling from a neutral grip. So I'll start with this and I'll work my way into isolation type exercises. Next up, we have the close grip reverse lat pull down. You're going to want to start off with a shoulder width underhand grip for this exercise. You notice that Josh is keeping his chest up and his lower back arched as he's pulling the bar down to his chest. Like we were talking about before, you'll notice that he's getting a full range of motion, getting a nice squeeze. And also one thing to keep in mind, guys, is you can use as an alternative the V bar for this close grip exercise. Another thing I often see is a lot of people will actually try to bring the bar like crazy low, like almost down to their belly button or something like that. What they're doing there is they're going to be taking the activation off of the lat. So this is something you should really avoid doing, and just pull it down to where you really feel the squeeze properly. Number 3, we have the one arm lat pull down. I highly suggest you guys adding this into your routine. For those of you who actually like just isolating one arm at a time, it is simply an amazing exercise, and you guys can feel the the contraction in your lat like never before because you're just focusing on one at a time. So it really helps avoid muscle imbalances, and you guys will hear me say this a million times, and I'm sorry if it's getting repetitive, but you'll notice we are doing a full range of motion. We are keeping it nice and controlled. I'm not using 250 pounds on this. I'm probably using like 70 pounds, and I'm just getting a nice squeeze in my lats and really putting me in a good position to work my lats properly and to help myself gain the most amount of muscle from this exercise. Mind muscle connection, baby. This one is key. Okay, this is kind of a funky exercise, something you may not see too often. This is exercise number 4. Mind muscle connection, like I said, is absolutely crucial, especially for this exercise. You're going to want to make sure that the arm at the very top of the movement is remaining straight throughout the entire time, really squeezing those lats. Last but not least, we have the wide grip reverse lat pull down. You may experience a little bit of wrist pain, and if you do, I highly recommend putting your hands closer on the bar or just completely avoiding this exercise. But it's awesome because it really stimulates the lower lat muscle fibers, which will give you the appearance of a thick and full lat. This is a variation that's often used as assistance work for those that actually have trouble in the first stage of the deadlift. Basically, the increased range of motion is going to be recruiting more of the posterior chain as well as the quads, and it's going to be putting the lifter at a disadvantage, increase the time under tension, and also lengthen the amount of time that the lifter must work through the bottom end of the movement, which is typically the most challenging or weakest link for a lot of lifters. Variation number 2, sumo deadlift. One advantage of this exercise for a powerlifter is that the bar has less distance to travel. For conventional deadlifters, adding in sumo pulls can also help give them hip strength and give your lower back a break. Now we're moving on to some pause deadlifts. This is a fantastic way to help improve strength and explosiveness off the floor. What it's going to do essentially is going to help you increase the time under tension in a troubled spot, which is where you're pausing, which is going to then feed into the explosiveness factor. On top of that, it's going to help you engage the lats to a higher degree, which is going to prevent the bar from getting away from the body. In other words, it's going to help you maintain a better bar path. So you guys see here, we've got some mats that we're working off of for our block pulls. I think it's very, very important to realize that the utilization of special exercises are just absolutely key to add into your training routine to really build the bottom and top part of your deadlift, especially for those of you who have sticking points. So this is going to be working the lockout. Now onto the hex bar deadlift. This exercise is going to be allowing you to actually lift more weight, place less load on the spine, and get more knee extensor involvement. A lot of people haven't actually tried this one out, so I highly recommend you do if you haven't already. The first one is the cable row, and this is an absolute fantastic exercise. Keep in mind, guys, we have form videos for all of these. So the cable row is fantastic because you're able to have constant tension. You're allowed to squeeze all the way back, control all the way forward, and you're allowed to build your back greatly from using this exercise, okay? Next up is the barbell row. This is fantastic, done safely. You're allowed to really overload, and this is just great for building on that solid mass. And last but not least, we've got the T-bar row, and this is great because you're kind of in that position where you can pull right up towards your stomach. You can overload the back, similar to the barbell row.